Right, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Williams. I'm Adult and Community Services Manager for the Columbia Public Library, which is part of the Daniel Boone Regional Library System. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn, where we'll be learning about the work of two very important organizations in our community, Boone County Community Against Violence and Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense. So today's Lunch and Learn is co-hosted by the library and the League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County. Before we begin our program, I just have a few of the usual Zoom housekeeping items. To ask questions of our presenters today, if you would use the chat feature down at the bottom of your screen. If you hover over your Zoom window, you should see that speech bubble. If you're on a tablet or a smartphone, you may have to tap in the middle of your screen to see those menu items. If you want to unmute to ask your question at the end of the presentation, use the raise hand feature and I can unmute you so you can ask your question or contribute to the discussion. And we are recording today's program that will be available later on the League of Women Voters YouTube channel, as well as the library's YouTube channel when we've had a chance to edit it. And so now I'd like to welcome our moderator, League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County President Barbara Hoppe. Thanks so much, Barbara.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. And as always, thanks to the Columbia Public Library for co-sponsoring our Lunch and Learn programs. We're really pleased today to have us as guest speakers Shaunda Hamilton from the Boone County Community Against Violence and Katie Terry, local spokesperson and membership lead for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Shauna is founder of the Boone County Community Against Violence, a local nonprofit committed to providing advocacy in the community to those who have been affected directly or indirectly by violence, grief, loss, and trauma. Shauna started the BCCAV after her 18-year-old daughter, Nadia Wright's death in 2019 when Nadia was attending Columbia College as a nursing student. Shaunda Hamilton, who's here today, has earned her advocacy credential through the National Advocate Credentialing Program. And I wanted to mention also that the League of Women Voters was honored and pleased to co-sponsor an event that Shaunda organized last fall with our new Boone County prosecutor, Roger Johnson, and Gary Oxenhandler moderating, learning about and communicating with the prosecutor's office and the community. That was really successful and was co-sponsored by the NAACP. So we're pleased to have that involvement with you and hope to have future ones. And also joining us today, we're really pleased that Katie Terry is here. She's a spokesperson and membership lead for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, locally here in Columbia. And she first attended her first meeting in 2015 and joined leadership in 2016. And together with her friend and fellow volunteer, Kristen Bowen, founded the local group. She speaks to media, appears on Paul Pepper shows, attends city-sponsored family fun nights, talks about safe gun storage at health fairs, and makes calls to volunteers. So we're just very pleased to have this important program, and we'll go ahead and hear from Shaunda and Katie on how they got started in this, why and how they personally got involved, what their organization does, and also very importantly, how we, the viewers and members of the League of Women Voters, can help in their effort. So I think we'll go first with Katie with Moms Demand Action, who has a little slide information program for us, and then we'll go into hearing from both of our guests and taking chat questions. So Katie.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Lauren and Shaunda. It's really nice to be here with all of you. So I've just got a pretty brief slide presentation that I hope will give you a little information about our organization and then ways to get involved. So my first slide is about Moms 101, which just gives you a little background information about our organization. We are the largest grassroots organization in the country devoted to gun violence prevention. We about a year ago had 6 million active members. We're over 9 right now. You might notice the bump after the grocery store shooting in Buffalo and then Uvalde, and the list goes on and on about the well-known mass shootings in this country, but that drives a lot of people who want to make change in this country to us. We were founded by a woman named Shannon Watts. She founded our group on Facebook the day after the Sandy Hook school shooting, which was in December of 2012. It's of interest to a lot of us. There's 2 things about Shannon. She is a Mizzou alum. She went to school and met her husband here. She was, at the time of the Sandy Hook school shooting, she was a stay-at-home mom of 5 in Indiana, and just was appalled at the school shooting and reached out on Facebook and started our group. And if you're interested in learning more about her, she was profiled in the Washington Post just yesterday. She's going to step back from the organization. She's 52 years old. Her youngest is in college. She has been an amazing, amazing spokesperson and volunteer for us. And I think she's going to find out the next chapter of her life. We are in all 50 states. Our organization, we're divided into chapters, so we're the Missouri chapter. I will also tell you that we are all volunteers. So I have 2 leadership roles in Moms Demand Action. My colleague, Kristen, as a deputy chapter leader. We are all volunteers. There's a woman, Clarissa Hollander, in Liberty, Kansas, who's the Missouri chapter leader. And the hours we put in and the work we do is all volunteer because we're just dedicated to this issue. When Shannon founded us, we were Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. She aligned herself with Everytown for Gun Safety, which was started by Michael Bloomberg, and it was an outgrowth. He was the mayor of New York City for several years, and he started Mayors Against Illegal Guns. And so moms became a part of that, as well as Students Demand Action. That was obviously invigorated after the Parkland school shooting, and we have several chapters here in Columbia, one at Rockbridge currently. We have the Everytown Survivor Network. I'll get to a few facts and figures about gun violence in this country. But we do have a survivor network. And then Mayors Against Illegal Guns is still in existence. And I believe that Barbara Buffalo, I know Mayor Treese joined, and I believe Barbara Buffalo will continue that. It's really important when you learn about our organization to know that we're nonpartisan. We are not Democrats or Republicans. We're all of those things. We support the Second Amendment and the Constitution of the United States. We have gun owners in our organization and in leadership. We're very careful to talk about gun sense legislation. Gun control happens to be, I hate to use this word, but it's sort of a trigger for people. They think we're coming for their guns. That's not what Moms is not about. We're just making our schools, our families, and our streets safer. Unlike a lot of organizations, including League of Women Voters and the PTA and other organizations we might join, you don't pay any dues to belong. You become a supporter by taking an action. And an action can be anything from coming to a meeting, marching in the homecoming parade with us, hosting something, writing a letter to a legislator. It's just taking an action. We're an action-based group. As we were founded on social media, lots and lots happens on social media. The Twitter team is very active. We're on Instagram, Facebook. Shannon's a huge presence on social media. I would invite you to follow any of us there. And there is a fairly large Everytown staff in Washington, D.C. and New York City who do support our work. So while we're volunteers, volunteers. We are supported by a paid staff who, just as an example, if we're going to go to attend a hearing in Jefferson City, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, they will prepare us with the background of the bill, what the language actually says, who's supporting it, who's not supporting it, that sort of thing. So that's a little bit about us. I'm going to have you try to remember a couple of things, but here's why we do the work we do. Every day in this country, 110 people are killed by gun violence. That number has been steadily climbing. It used to be 90, it used to be 100, we're up to 110. And firearms are the leading cause of death for children in this country, even more than motor vehicles. So that's why we do the work we do. I'm going to give you a little more background information about that, but that's sort of the number one stat that we use. I threw this slide in just to remind you that COVID has been very bad for gun sales, people stuck in the home. A lot of mass shootings are domestic violence situations, which I'll get to in a minute. But these are some statistics about gun sales and gun deaths. I'll talk a little bit more about that, and this is the slide I'm going to put up a second time. Again, so 110 people are killed every day in this country. For every person killed, for every 110 people killed, 200 more are impacted. Those are people who are shot and maybe not killed, but wounded, people who are witnesses, and people who are otherwise impacted. I talked a little bit about the Everytime Survivor Network, and we don't ask you to define yourself as a survivor. However you've been impacted by gun violence, it might be a suicide in your family, it might be somebody you know. In general, the statistics are that 60% of gun violence and gun deaths are suicides and 40% are homicides. Those statistics change state by state. In Missouri, actually, because of Kansas City and St. Louis, we have, ours is a little bit closer to 50-50. We have more homicides because of the two large cities. And if you pay attention to the news out of St. Louis is goes back and forth between the first and second city in the country for the most toddler shooting deaths, and that's because grown-ups leave weapons around the home and children find them. And then a mass shooting in this country is defined as 4 or more people killed, and those happen absolutely every day. Most often they're domestic violence situations where most often a man will shoot his domestic or intimate partner, shoot the children, and then kill himself. So those are the mass shootings that happen every day. I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, Uvalde, El Paso, Dayton, Buffalo. Those are the news that get the headlines, but really it's happening every day in this country. What Moms does is, so we are, again, a grassroots organization, and we do a couple of really important things. One of the things we do is legislative work. So we try to fight for stronger gun laws in this country. Background checks save lives. We know that, it's a fact. And so we fight for that both at the state level and the federal level, and we work to close loopholes. There's a domestic violence loophole right now that allows boyfriends to keep their weapons. The law defines you have to be a husband to have your gun taken away if you've been convicted of a felony. We work with our own communities. Shaunda and I are friends. We work together with moms. We work with other organizations in cities that are working on the same issue. City gun violence prevention, Stop the Bleed, things like that. And we're just committed to doing what it takes to keep families safe. Obviously, in Columbia, we do a lot of legislative work because of our proximity to Jefferson City. I'll talk a little bit about a rapid response team we have. But in general, we try to share positive information about gun storage, about our work, about actions people can take. We do have a Be Smart gun storage program that we present to PTAs, schools, health fairs, any place that will have us. And in Jefferson City, we work to promote good gun bills, look for sponsors for good gun bills, and to speak out and fight against bad gun bills. Missouri has very weak laws in terms of gun ownership. Again, these are some of the things we do supporting the gun laws and work in Jefferson City. We look for local partners. We do a lot of legislative work and election campaigning. We keep it separate from moms. You can wear your shirt, but the money is kept separate and some of the volunteering is kept separate. But we do work for candidates that we know will promote positive gun sense legislation. A really great entry point for a lot of people is our Be Smart program. And it's an acronym for safe storage, modeling behavior, respecting, asking about guns in the home. And it is pretty powerful, and it's also an education, sort of an education arm of the work that Moms does in terms of, again, I mentioned Missouri has weak gun laws, but it also has a very strong hunting culture, and a lot of people here hunt. And I think if we're going to live here and work here, we need to respect that, but it's really important to have people store their weapons responsibly. And we work together with the police, for example, to pass out gun locks to people. We talk to grandparents and others who have guns in the home, or people who send their children to places there are guns in the home. We do role modeling and practice learning to ask other parents if they have guns in the home. You just make it a natural part of a conversation. Hey, my child has a peanut allergy. Can you be careful about that? And can I just ask if your guns are locked, if you have guns, if they're locked up, and just make it very natural so that you can know your kids are safe. We do a lot of training, and then we do things like this and come talk about our work to let people know that there's ways that we can all take action to promote gun violence prevention. We do have a Gun Sense Action Network, and those are the people that do some of the legislative work and some of the phone banking. I will repeat this phone number a couple of times, but if you all have a smartphone, you can just text the word volunteer to the number 64433. You can text any number of words. You can text volunteer, you can text ready, you can text act. They will reach out to you via text. And these are, again, just some of the other organizations we partner with. You can text the word commit to 64433. We have events, we do membership building, we have community outreach and education. Again, I mentioned we're data driven. There is an organization called everytownresearch.org. You can look up gun statistics state by state. You can look up what's happening in Missouri. And a lot of the legislation that we promote is based on research, background checks, saving lives kind of thing. We only support laws and legislation that we know work. Here's some things you can do today. Again, you guys said you can text almost anything to 64433. You can text event. We're having our next meeting. We are meeting on Zoom these days, like you guys are, which is a great way to connect with people. There's a meeting on January 17th to hear about what's going to be happening in the legislative session in Jefferson City. If you're interested in joining that, you can just text event to 64433. We do have a Moms Demand app that you can download and find out about events in Missouri. And then again, I would recommend, if you're on any social media, this would be a sample Twitter post. Kristen and I are both on Facebook. Moms Demand Action Nationwide and in Missouri is on Facebook. You can look for us there. Lots of ways to get involved. Barbara mentioned that I've been volunteering for moms since 2016. We all come to the organization for different reasons. We all have a passion for reducing gun violence in this country. I'm not from Missouri. I moved here with my husband. I grew up in Illinois in a family that didn't own or have guns. And so they're not a part of my life, but I'm very passionate about my children. Everybody's on a college campus right now. My husband works on one. I work on one. My children are back in graduate school, so they're both on college campuses. I just care deeply about their safety, and I feel like we should all be able to go to churches and synagogues and the grocery store and a nightclub and be safe. So that's what motivates me to do this work, to make a safer world for my own kids. What I would say about volunteering for moms, and I'm assuming you all feel the same way with the League of Women Voters, is that you get out what you put in. There's a place in moms for everybody: moms, dads, uncles, brothers, childless, child-free, affected by gun violence personally or not. There's a place for you to take action, and kind of at your own level and your own comfort zone. A lot of people don't like going to Jefferson City. I didn't think I did, but I feel passionately enough about this issue to go sit down there in my red shirt and stare down the legislators who want to allow guns in daycares and bars and college campuses and other places. I write letters, I make phone calls. There's just, you can do a little or you can do a lot, and feel like you're making a difference. Again, there are things you can do from your computer with a phone in the evening. There's Zoom meetings you can attend. You can go to Jefferson City. You can write letters. You can call other volunteers. There's just lots of entry points. And then, we all do things that give us rewards. And some of the things for me have been seeing change in this country. I think we're finally making progress at the national level, not so much in Missouri, but we're working on it. I've made a lot of friends. Shaunda and I know each other from this work. There's a huge network in Missouri and around the country. Every city I go to, I wear my mom's shirt and meet people. My skills, my toolbox has gotten better working for moms. I've been given responsibility and learned things. We do a lot of training. We do a lot of phone training, a lot of in-person training. There's a lot to help educate us about this issue. And the reason I do it is that it makes my kids proud. So that's a side benefit for me. And that is all I have right now. Barbara, do you want to wait till the end for questions, or I'm happy to take any now?
Let's see. Oh, there's just one right now, which is, what time is the Zoom meeting on January 17th?
Let me look that up. Let me look that up.
Okay.
I'm gonna say 7 in the evening, but I'm gonna check my handy app right this very second.
And then we'll move on to Shaunda and learning more about Shaunda and the Boone County Community Against Violence program that she started. And then we'll go into sort of questions with both of you, and maybe there's interaction and communication between both of you, and hearing how you collaborate a little bit.
Sure. Okay. The meeting is at 7 in the evening on the 17th, and I can put more information about that in the chat.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Katie. That was really very interesting and informative. And so now we'll move on to Shaunda Hamilton and learn more about the Boone County Community Against Violence. Shaunda.
I know that's a mouthful. So you can say BCCAV. I just feel like that's a tongue twister too. But so thank you so much for having me. And as Katie said, we do work together. And she also, I love that organization and the things they do. I can't wait until one day we are as organized and have all those supporters that they do. Even my grandson loves going to their events, and he wears his red Moms Demand Action and going to events and putting on the cape and stuff. Yes. So thank you again. But yeah, so as Barbara said, I started my nonprofit in 2019 of October. My daughter, Nadria Wright, she was killed here in Columbia. And so when I started that organization, I don't even know that I meant to start an organization. Honestly, it was really when it happened, someone was at the scene. He didn't know who she was, but he didn't know the other victim's family. And so he really didn't know what to do. He contacted them and he contacted the police. And so he would, when he found it was my daughter, he's like, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know what to do." So one of the things that I thought of is, like, when these things happen and people don't always know how to give CPR, they don't know how to stop the bleed. And I wondered if those steps were taken, possibly would she still be alive? And so our first event we had was with the Boys and Girls Club here. They let us use the space there, and we held an event with the University of Missouri, with MPCU. Is that it? Missouri Psychiatric Unit. So the
Wow.
and the EMS, yes. And we had a lot of different volunteers that came, and they set up different stands and things like that, and did some teachings and learnings, and like I said, CPR and stop the bleed, some Narcan things, just all types of things. And so that's how it really started. And so we had that event, and I was really kind of thinking that was just going to be like it. And then someone said, what's the next? When are you having a meeting? And so at that point, I'm like, oh, so, we formed Boone County Community Against Violence. Again, when I first started, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So we were having meetings, and the organization has really kind of formed as I've kind of gradually kind of come to terms, and as I've changed throughout this whole incident with my daughter. Like I said, I started with the stop the bleed and the CPR, and then going through the process of like just having people come and be a support for me. I had a lot of supporters. And it was very tough for me to just get out of bed to eat. I ended up with some illnesses, serious illnesses, lost a lot of weight. I couldn't eat, and so I had a lot of physical illnesses as well. So I started thinking about like all these people that supported me, and I'm so sorry because I always get emotional. And it was so tough for me.
Yeah.
I thought about all the people who didn't have anyone. And so I knew I wanted to help some of those people who didn't really have the support that I had. So that's when I decided to be an advocate, because even though I went through this, I wanted to make sure that I didn't, of course, this is healing for me as well, but I didn't want to make that about me. So I think getting that training was the best thing I could do, because it taught me how to not trauma bond, but to really be present for the people who are needing me, and not, so that's how that came about. So I became an advocate. I have someone from Moms Demand Action. They work with me on a lot of different events as well. They come to my events, and we even have someone who is a part of that group who is also a certified advocate with me as well, and took the training. And so that's how we started doing that. We became advocates at that point. And really what we do, we have so many great organizations here in Columbia that provide so many resources, that we're not really a resource-based organization, but we try to help people get to those resources, because sometimes when they are going through those things, it's really hard to give someone a number and tell them to call that number. You can give them numbers all day. That doesn't mean they're going to call it, or if someone doesn't answer, they're probably not going to call back. Or if someone doesn't return a call, they're probably just going to give up. And so what we try to do is we try to be there, that in between, to make sure that those things get done. We work with different counselors. So we have different events that happen here, different tragedies that happen here. We have counselors that we work with to try to get people into some counseling services if they need it, whether they have insurance or not. And then just to get them started for the counseling sessions. When we had the volunteer shooting, we were out there and just getting people signed up and getting counseling set up and scheduled. We actually coordinated those counseling for people to kind of get them started. And then those things happen. This year, then the pandemic happened. So of course the pandemic changed a lot for everything, a lot of things, but we still continue to get calls and go to court with people. We also work with the police department at times whenever they need to get in touch with a victim or want to kind of explain some additional things to them. We'll get a call to contact them and be a support for them if they need to go talk with them. And most recently with Roger Johnson, the new prosecuting attorney, we've been working with him on things in that office, to kind of be in the victims advocacy department there, working on some things with them for victims as well. They have a great department. And so, but he is always looking to see what they can do better as well. And so he does come to me for some of those things and those discussions and stuff. Like you said, we had the community forum with him, because one of the things is it's a lot of distrust between the police departments and prosecuting attorneys' offices. And so what I want to really do is try to kind of open up, that communication and trust. I mean, it's, the best way I can for people. And I want, people to have that with, the agencies and the police department and the prosecuting attorney's office. Let's see what else. This year, though, what we wanting to do is, I want to work more with families. We're still going to continue the advocacy, but as Moms Demand Action, they do that legislative work, which I think is so great because it really helps us as well. And but I also want to start working more with families and goal settings. So I have a family development credential, and that's what that's for, working with families to develop those goals, and not just with the children, but with the families overall. It's a whole family goal setting. And so hopefully working in that direction as well, that will help with the entire family and just the whole mindset and change mindsets of people. And so that's one of the things that we're working on. We're always looking for volunteers to continue with the work. Like I said, with the pandemic, things kind of got crazy and people weren't really available as much. And being such a small organization, sometimes it does get difficult to do some of the work, but we still are out here working as hard as we can to do that. And so that's just some of the things we do. We've worked with different organizations as well, a community, CMCA. So we've helped people with different housing. And again, because we're not a resource, we don't provide those resources, we just kind of help. So when we've worked with all types of clients, and not just people who have had a loss from a child or a family member, but we've helped even a father who was trying to get parental rights for a child and kind of help them through that process. So pretty much anything that we can help as far as it involves with the court systems, things like that, or just getting you to other resources like housing, utilities. I work with a lot of organizations as well here in the community, Rock the Community. They're always assisting me. That's one of our biggest things, is that we want to know who the other resources are here in Columbia, because we want to know. So if you guys are out there, are you part of another organization? I'd like to find out who you are and what you do, because that's really important for us to have that network of the resources that are here. Because like I said, there's a lot of great nonprofit organizations here that help. And so we really need to know who you guys are so that we can get people to you and build that relationship with you. My goal is that we actually have a number that we can call personally to someone, and we don't have to sit online and wait and try to figure out where to get to. So that's my whole goal really too, is to be able to have those personal connections to certain people at different organizations, so that I can be able to get people help as soon as possible. And so, but that's some of the things that we do here.
That's great. I'll start off with a few questions. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. We do have some questions that came in, and we'll get to those, and we have some time for them. I was just curious, as you were talking, how many people you have who answer those phones and give those resources, and do you need more help, and how can people get involved? Because it sounds like it's almost a 24-hour thing. I'm not sure. Could you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, currently right now it's primarily me. Right now, before the pandemic, I think I had about, I'd say probably 15 volunteers. Like I said, we're really small. And then just with people's lives, and school, we had school shutting down. A lot of the people that we have do have children in school. I don't have any children at home right now, but a lot of them do, and so yeah, right now it's just me, and then I'll call out to other people to do some things that I can't do, but primarily it's me.
So do people contact you by phone, by email, and then you
both? Yeah. One of the things that I'm finding too is, even during the pandemic, is that I've found that because a lot of times I'll say, how did you find out about us? A lot of it is on the internet, is what I'm finding, which I was really surprised to see. But I think right now, like I said, with things that's just been happening, in the last few years, people are on there searching and putting in different things and just looking for, different resources. And so, yeah.
So I'll make one more comment, and then we'll go to the questions. It occurred to me that both of you were talking about collaboration with other organizations. So certainly the League of Women Voters should be thinking about assisting in registering, getting more people registered to vote, and getting out the vote for communities that are concerned and people who are concerned about this issue. So that might be a future way we can collaborate and assist. So I wrote that down for future action, as Katie says, and it's all about action. So now let's see, I know there's a few questions, or at least one. What ways can the public specifically help out your organization as an individual? I just maybe going more into that. Katie went into some specifics, but if Katie wants to join in on more detail, that's fine too. So how can people get involved?
You can text any, ready vote event to 64433. We also have a pretty robust website. If you go to momsdemandaction.org/events, and I'll put this in the chat, you can search events by date or by state, and you can just register yourself online. So the legislative update on January 17th, again, I'll put that address in the chat and the date. But we do have Zoom events, and we have a little bit of security. So you have to sign up for the event with your name, email, and phone, and then you'll be sent an email, and you will have to. We had a couple Zoom bombings early during the pandemic, so we do require a little more stringent registration for our events. But yeah, attending a meeting is a great thing to do. It's funny, when you talked about registering voters, we do that, and we do a lot on campus as well. And if people were going to do one thing, I would say voting is the most important thing you can do until we get rid of some of these politicians in Jeff City and vote for what we believe in. We're going to be stuck in this situation. So my money's on the young people to make change, but we would be glad to work with you. And that's the number one action I would take. If you are going from zero to something, vote. Educate yourself about candidates and vote.
Thank you, Katie. And Shauna.
Okay, so we're always looking for volunteers as well for different events. And sometimes, like I said, even if we are working with other organizations, because we do believe in collaborating and keeping those connections. But when you talked about voting, we did work with them for transportation to get voters out. We haven't actually went out and did in the voting, but we have worked with Boone County Dems to be able to get some transportation rides. We volunteer for that as well, and to get transportation for people to get out and vote who otherwise would not be able to get out and vote. And I saw another question there on a specific.
I think one of the questions was, how can people get involved in helping Boone County community against violence if they want to assist?
So we are going to start having more meetings again that have been kind of cut back to. We're going to start having meetings. So even attending a meeting, because like I said, we're kind of really looking at this year. I want to work more with families on a more family level, with the parents and children. And so attending those meetings and just coming out and seeing, finding out what your skill sets are and what you are interested in doing would be really helpful. There's so many talented people here. And like I said, this is my first, I hadn't planned on having a nonprofit. It just kind of happened that way. And so with me not really knowing what to do, it's like I've learned so much from other people, and I'm willing to continue to learn from other people and the skill sets that other people have, and just to try to make this community better. I know it takes all of us. And so that's one of the things that you can do. Like I said, I can't wait to get Moms Demands Action because I love how all their stuff is so, and I learned a lot from them too.
There's another question, which is, do you focus mostly on domestic violence? And there was another part of that.
So I'm glad someone asked that. We don't specifically focus on. When I first started, I did focus primarily on someone who had lost a loved one from gun violence. So of course, we get all type of requests, and honestly, I get a lot of requests for domestic violence because we do have the Dove program here, and we do have True North here. A lot of times, those things are already here. So Detective Moscati, he was over the Dove program. And so a lot of times I try to make sure people get into their programs because they're the people who really specialize in that area. But we do get a lot of calls for that. And so that's kind of where that direction goes to, because we have people here that actually, do that work. And so again, we're a resource based. And so I never want to try to take over or try to get into a lane I'm not really don't need to be in. And so I get them to there.
Great. And a follow-up with that is, what other groups do you refer people to? I mean, organizations, resources.
So it just depends on what the need is. I've worked with Love Columbia. Of course, I said CMCA, Rock the Community. It just kind of depends on what your needs are.
So a whole variety of things. Great. Let me see if there's more questions here. Oh, is there a newsletter that provides an update on legislation specific to gun sensibility responsibility?
There's not a newsletter specifically. It's a great question, and it would be really helpful. We do have people that track it for us. One of the things about the Missouri State Legislature is they can hold a hearing with only 24 hours notice. So we have people who are monitoring the calendar all the time, and really being on social media. I'm sorry, I know it's not for everybody, but it is the fastest way to hear about things. There's a Columbia Moms group on Facebook, or if you're on Twitter, those are the two places to hear about it. Yeah, it's pretty important. And that's, again, I mentioned that we're nimble in Columbia. We have a rapid response team that's made up of several of us who, because we're the people who can get to Jefferson City the fastest. When they do only give us 24 hours and then change the time anyway. So sometimes it's just a couple of hours of notice. So the short answer is no newsletter. Yes, people watching. And if you connect with us and sign up in any way, you can be notified about some of those, about bills coming up.
Great. And could you give us a little preview of some of the legislative issues that the January 17th Zoom meeting might address?
Yeah, absolutely.
About.
In terms of gun violence prevention. So the Republicans still have a supermajority, which is really tough for us. Two bills that get introduced every year. One is guns everywhere. And right now you cannot bring, Missouri is a permitless carry state, so you don't have to have a permit. You don't have to have any training. You can carry a weapon. But there are a few places in Missouri where you can't carry that weapon. You can't bring it into a bar. You can't bring it on a college campus unless it's locked in your car. You can't bring it in a daycare. You can't bring it in a church. But somebody will introduce a bill to allow guns in all those places. And so we fight like hell against that bill. We work with committees. We mobilize the rapid response team to testify. We mobilize phone bankers to call their legislators around the state of Missouri. It's more effective if you're a constituent to call the legislators on the committees, but we organize against that bill, and we have defeated it every year. So, we sort of call it failing forward. It's not passing a good gun bill, but it's keeping a bad gun bill from being enacted into law. So we're sure that will be introduced again. The Second Amendment Nullification Act is working its way through the courts. We fought against that. I'm not sure where that's going to stand this year. Senator Tracy McCreary used to be a representative, and she won a Senate election this fall. So she'll be a senator, and she's been a Democratic sponsor for us of domestic violence, closing the loophole that I mentioned, that anyone who's convicted of a felony doesn't have to be a husband. It can be a boyfriend or a partner, will not be able to keep their weapon. So that's a bill we will be promoting. And I'm not sure what else to expect this year. We do have a paid legislative staffer who monitors Missouri for us. And I guess we'll all learn more at the meeting on the 17th. I'll be attending to hear what's coming.
Thank you very much. And I was just thinking, even people that live in Boone County, if they have friends or relatives in the rest of the state, this is a really important thing for them to contact those people who then can contact their representatives and have that personal message from a constituent. So we'll encourage everyone who's listening to keep, alert and doing that. I think we have a few more questions. Let's go to those. Let's see. Does moms ever use email to alert people to legislation? That goes back to the newsletter issue.
Yeah, they will. They will. You have to sign up and request it, but I get emails every day. Yep.
And I have a question that I had earlier about how many members do you have in Columbia, Boone County, active people? What would
That's a really great question
area?
that I don't know the answer to. We get close to 200 people at our statewide meetings. Zoom has been really great for that. And we usually average between 20 and 40 at our local meetings, which are monthly. We're a pretty active state, honestly. I can look up those numbers. It's a good question. I'll find out and let you know, Barbara, so you can share with the members. It's a good question. I will say Missouri's been really interesting. So, the whole political landscape here is the urban versus rural. And we have one of our very early chapters was down in the Boot Heel. And the woman who organized it had to drive an hour to get to a Kinko's to make copies of things. But Zoom and online has been great for members. We have a rural group that meets on Zoom, so it can be outstate anywhere in Missouri. And suicide is a huge issue in the rural communities. And people who are progressive on this issue feel overlooked in the rural communities. So they've found a real community with moms. But I will definitely find that out. And I see another question in the chat.
Yes.
Looks like it's for me. About letter writing. Yes, we do.
Yes.
We ask people to write letters to the editor, and we give you sample copy of everything. If we ever ask you to make a phone call to a legislator or write a letter, we prepare you with the text of what you want to say in the call, what you want to say in the letter. And then we, if you live in a place that could write a letter to the editor, if you still have a newspaper or two in town, we provide guidance on that. And we, of course, ask for ways to make it your own, your story, why the issue is important to you. But we do have words we use and points we want to get across, especially to our legislators.
Great. To make it easier. Yeah. I wanted to get to Shaunda. I saw that Shaunda put in contact information for how to contact her and your organization. But I also wanted to ask Shaunda about the nursing scholarship that exists at Columbia College in honor and memory of her daughter. If you could share that, a little bit of that, Shaunda.
So kind of goes back to like that support that I really had from this community. Nadria was attending Columbia College when she was killed. And so her college, Columbia College, Suzanne Rothwell, Stacy Buttons from Ready. And I do have affiliations with there, and a friend of mine and my old manager, Jesse Yankee, from Missouri Women's Business Center. They all got together and they wanted to support the organization. And so they wanted to know exactly what I would like, if I would like money towards the organization or if I would like to get a scholarship. And so I wanted to get a scholarship for other nursing students who maybe had some financial issues with going to school to be able to help them. So that's what we decided to do. We went and started a nursing scholarship in Nadria's name. And so I can give you a link to that as well. It's a really good, I'm really proud of that scholarship. We had our first recipient last year. And so we'll have one this year. And yeah, I'm just really excited about it. And I'm really happy that someone is going to be able to, benefit and be able to hopefully, be helpful to them. Nadra was really passionate about going to nursing school. She wanted to go to nursing school for a really long time. And so she had went back and forth on the type of nurse she wanted to be. She ultimately, when she was 15 or 16, decided she wanted to be a CRNA, which is certified registered nurse. And she always used to get upset with me because I couldn't pronounce it, nurse anesthetic nurse. And so when she was 15 or 16, we lived in Dallas. And so she got certified as a EKG so that she can start learning how to understand the heart, because you have to monitor people while they're under sedation. And so I like to tell this story, because she was so excited about this job. She's like, oh, it's going to be so exciting. And learning how to do the medications and putting them to sleep. And I'm like, Nadria, you have to, the most important thing of this job is making sure they wake up. But anyway, she was really happy to start her journey at Columbia College. And so she loved that campus there. She would call and she'd say, sorry, just how beautiful that campus was. So it's really important to me, and I'm really happy that they have that scholarship there for her. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much for starting that. And it's so good to do positive things out of tragedy. So that's a great way people can contribute and help other people down the road. So let's see, we have a few more minutes. I don't know if there's any more questions. Is there anything else either of you want to add or say that we missed or you missed?
Let's see, I have a link for that scholarship as well here.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. Yeah. Otherwise, I'll double check one more time to see if there are questions. And I'll just say that we had a good 27 people watching live, and this will be recorded so people can watch it on the League website, or also with the Columbia Public Library. It will be on YouTube in a few days. But I want to thank both of you so much for your work and for sharing this with us, and hopefully more people will get involved in your organizations. And I talked to Shaunda and Katie did about maybe Boone County Community Against Violence being on Como Gives next year. So looking for people to donate to that. And I wanted to let everyone know that our next Lunch and Learn program is February 14th, Valentine's Day, and it will be with Carolyn Amperin, who's the chair of the Sierra Club, and it will be about climate action and addressing climate change, and the latest information for Columbia and Boone County and what they're trying to achieve and how people can get involved with that. Another important issue for the future of the world and the earth and our young people in Columbia. So thank you, both of you, so much. And I'll just double check to make sure there's not a last minute question. Just a lot of thank yous for your work, and thank you for the information. So we'll keep in touch and hopefully work together.
Thank you for having me. And it's good to see you, Katie.
Yeah, great to see you, Shaunda. Thank you for having us. Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity, and we appreciate the work the library and the League of Women Voters do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.